All right, let's talk a little bit about foundational lifts. And, these are the lifts that I've pretty much settled on a number of times over the years. I change it and I always come back to these four. And when I say this, I'm not saying you have to pick these exact four, but I think that you would do very, very, very difficult to find stuff that's going to be just as good. Okay, so these are not choices that I make lightly, and a lot of times when I give this, people will say, well, I could use this. I'm like, well, maybe, but I don't think it's as good. Because obviously if I thought it was as good, I would pick it. If I thought it was better, I would pick that. Right? But the exercises that I think kind of are the foundational exercises that we should build our training off of are the squat, the deadlift, the bench press, and the pull-up. Okay, I think that these four exercises, if we get good at all of them, will give us a well-rounded amount of strength, well-rounded amount of muscle mass through our whole body. Now, when I make that statement, am I saying, oh, we shouldn't do other stuff? Of course not. I want to be clear there. Now, there are people almost like Martin Burkham who said, I think we don't really need that much other stuff at all. He had a very successful approach. He had an extremely successful approach. Got people letting in and out of the gym pretty quick. He was jacked and ripped and all that. Looked good. But I do think we need a little more stuff, and I would say, of course you fill in the gaps in your weak links. If you need more delts, do more delts. If you need more biceps, do biceps. If you need more hamstrings, do hamstrings, right? If you need calves, do some calves. I am not telling people not to do that, but what I am saying is that your foundational lifts, if they're well selected, and I think these are very, very good choices. Again, I would argue the best, but I do understand that's opinion and subjective. So I will state that. But these will build 90% of your muscle. Everything else that you are doing is there to fill in the gaps, another 10%, and particularly things like maybe your show muscles. I will obviously be the first to admit you may have lagging biceps if you only did these four. Okay? I think almost everyone would agree with that. It's kind of hard to build amazing biceps off only pull-ups and bench pressing for most people, right? Obviously. So on and so forth. But that's a pretty small muscle. So I think that these should be our foundational exercises, and I think we should have performance goals on them. And now, when I say that, do I mean if I say, hey, a goal of to get to 275 for 5 or 315 for 5 on the bench or whatever, 365 for 5 on a squat. Okay? I'm not saying through any means necessary. I'm saying with good form, good range of motion, right? I'm not talking about some guys on the deadlift. If I say, get to 5 plates for 5 reps is a real good strength standard. I'm not telling you to strap up and hitch and then touch and go and bounce the weight off the floor on the other reps and hitch it up your thighs with straps. That's not what I'm saying. I'm talking about walk over and pull it. In fact, I'd argue as clean as possible, maybe even without a belt. That's the strength standards that I'm talking about. You get in and actually lift it. Drop the knee sleeves, all that nonsense. Okay, so let's be clear here. But I think that we could build our strength standards off of these, and I think that would also carry over into body composition. All right, especially if I tell people, we should be working on getting to 15 or 20 pull-ups, like full range of motion pull-ups. Well, how many people who are carrying a lot of body fat can do 20 pull-ups, particularly if you train legs? How many of the guys who do tons of pull-ups because they have no legs? Your legs have the most muscle in your body. They're going to add the most weight, right? I'm talking about guys who can squat. Right? If you can squat 500 pounds and do 20 pull-ups, we're doing pretty good. Okay? I promise you, you're one of the biggest, strongest, most jack-looking guys when you walk in a room anywhere if you can do that. But I'll make standards like that, right? We make standards. I set that standard some time back. What do people say? That's unrealistic. Almost nobody could do both at the same time because you'll have to weigh too much to have a 500 squat. Well, that's kind of the point. You're probably going to have to be fairly lean, which I think is kind of the ideal when we start throwing things in like, hey, we need to be able to do pull-ups, right? Kind of necessitates us being lean in addition to the muscle development that it gives, right? And particularly if you're training legs, because that's going to add even more body weight. So yes, when I say things like that, people go, oh, that's unrealistic. But I'm like, is it? I think that's a sign of excellence we should strive towards. But I digress back over to the point. Having foundational lifts that we always are in pursuit of getting better at. And I don't mean better, again, at the sake of cutting range of motion, arching as much as you can on the bench, or bouncing the weight. I'm talking about actually getting stronger through full ranges of motion with good form. I'm not just talking about your 1 rep max. I'm talking about, can you do 5 reps? Can you do 10 reps with a lot of weight? Okay. But this gives us a benchmark to aim for. And if we have these consistent lifts in our program, we can always program around them. We can always be seeking to get better at them, right? And then, of course, we can always fill in our weak gaps along the way. And some things are weak gaps that we know we will always have. And in my case, I know I will always have to do bicep work, right? Because my biceps are not the most blessed, and they won't get as big as I need them to be from pull-ups. Me personally. Right? Someone else might struggle with a bit of chest development on the bench press. Maybe they need some dumbbells. Maybe they need some incline. Right? So on and so forth. Again, you can always fill in the gaps in your physique. You can fill in the gaps in your strength. But we need to have lifts that we chase. Even for people who are like, well, I'm only trying to get bigger and jacked. Well, you're going to do that by changing exercises all the time? You're going to do that without getting really good at some big exercises? You think you're going to do that without taking stuff? Well, I wish you good luck in that. But these are time-proven successful methods. They go back for generations. 70, 80, 90 years, 100 years sometimes. These big movements. And again, we can assess them based upon our strength improvements. They can be assessed based upon our strength improvements. And again, I don't mean by gaming the system and finding ways to cheat the weight up. I mean come in and get actually strong. Get actually strong. Right. But these are my foundational movements: squat, bench, deadlift, pull-up. And I think they're good choices for everyone, and I tend to promote that. Promote that at my clients, even the people who are chasing size and don't care about powerlifting or anything like that. All right, guys, but that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I'll talk to you guys next time.